A business that can start during a recessionary period is typically a business that's onto something, and you can sell and deliver work to clients in a period of hard times. What does that mean to you when times are not hard? The fact of the matter is, when the marketplace becomes uncertain, entrepreneurs must become the most certain they've ever been. For you, as a law firm owner, what does this mean? If your firm is that firm, then you are going to mop up all of the cases in your local market, or all of the right fit cases in your local market. And that's because welcome to another episode of the Law Firm Growth Acceleration Podcast. My name is Bill Hauser, and today, without my partner Andy Stickle, we're going to be talking about how to turn adversity into opportunity. And right now is a great example of a point in time where there's been a lot of stock market volatility, consumer confidence. If you've ever looked at the Michigan Consumer Confidence Index, it's currently at a point, well, at least last month, was at a point that is one of the lowest points in consumer confidence in one of the last 10 years. Consumer confidence really is a measurement of how confident people feel about buying products and services and feel about the future of the economy. And it's at like the third lowest point. It's much lower than post-COVID. And right now it's at the third lowest point in the last 10 years in terms of consumer confidence. And I always like to say that like the marketplace is the ultimate disciplinarian, right? When the marketplace contracts specifically, there is no greater disciplinarian on planet Earth in business than the actual marketplace itself. When people stop spending money on goods and services, the non-essential goods and services kind of just fade away. The non-serious businesses just kind of fade away. The non-serious entrepreneurs just kind of fade away. Or if they don't fade away, they struggle, and they struggle for sometimes years and years, or maybe for the future of their business. And it's really sad. But there's also this data on the opposite side of what happens during hard times, is adversity is an opportunity to some people. In the book Good to Great, Jim Collins talks about how the majority of companies that stood the test of time for 15 plus years with outsized returns on the S&P 500, the majority of these companies were started and founded during recessionary periods, right? Why is that? Because a business that can start during a recessionary period is typically a business that's onto something. Because if you can start a business in a period of a recession or a depression, if you can start a business, a new business, and you can sell and deliver work to clients in a period of hard times, what does that mean to you when times are not hard? That means that your business is going to really, really, really work, right? So hard times are, I think, a defining moment for entrepreneurs. I know it was for me in 2020 when COVID-19 hit. I really kind of look at the founding date of SMB as, that day when COVID-19 lockdowns happened, was when I actually became someone serious about business and serious about entrepreneurship. I remember sitting in my office. We had probably somewhere around 10 employees at the time. And at the flick of a light switch, I mean, put yourself back in the moment when, COVID happened. Lockdowns happen. Everyone had to go home, from my office. I'm sitting in my office, and I'm the only one sitting there after everyone goes home. Lockdowns are in force. And I started thinking to myself, holy crap, this is a scary, eerily similar feeling to what I had in 2008 when my family went bankrupt. So a lot of scar tissue kind of raised up and caused a lot of anxiety in me. And I actually got really teary-eyed alone in my office, which was in Bala Cynwyd, Pennsylvania. And I was sitting there and I was just thinking to myself, how am I going to deal with the fact that 30% of our marketing agency clients wanted to pause their marketing because courts were closed? 30% of my company's revenues vanished. Um, Everything went into downward spiral very quickly. Um, and I had to find a way to pivot. What I was doing was not going to cut it in a virtual world. So I started thinking to myself, where do people spend time? And that was Zoom. I put two and two together that people are going to be doing more virtual stuff than they've ever done before. So my intuition kicked in and I did my first Zoom webinar. And I knew nothing about webinars. I'd never held a webinar before and did my first Zoom webinar. And I was so scared that I was literally profusely sweating, and I had to keep my arms down because there was so much like pit stains in my shirt that I had to literally like constrain myself from talking with my hands because otherwise everyone would see these big black pit stains from all the sweat and fear that I was feeling. Heart was racing 1,000 beats a minute. I was so scared, but I knew that if I wanted to have an impact and if I wanted to continue marketing my business, I had to learn how to do webinars and Zoom. And my fourth webinar ever, we had 3,777 lawyers register for it. It was a PPP Loans for Lawyers webinar. And really at that point in time was where SMB Team was really kind of founded. Prior to that point in time, I was really just, treading water, and I didn't really know what I was doing. I had never faced any adversity in the marketplace like I did during the COVID shutdown. And from that point on, our talk show turned into the weekly webinar show turned into a talk show. Maybe about 2 or 3 months into me running this weekly talk show, I had interviewed like every thought leader in the legal industry. And then I basically started interviewing like big name thought leaders, Emmett Smith, Alex Rodriguez, Magic Johnson, Gary Vaynerchuk twice, James Clear, author of Atomic Habits, Michael Gerber, Gino Wickman, and the list goes on and on and on. And it was like this crazy momentum roller coaster that I was on as my brand was kind of expanding. And then we took that, we duplicated it into virtual events, and we started holding these big virtual events. Ended up merging with Andy Stickle, my partner. And the rest was really history. It really, that was when COVID-19 hit, that was the real defining moment for SMB Team. And hard times are defining moments for hard entrepreneurs, right? Soft entrepreneurs, hard times are going to make you soft and they're just going to expose your softness, right? So the beautiful thing about hard times is if you're absolutely committed to what you want to create, the best version of yourself will come out, right? And if you're not absolutely committed to what you want to create, then the worst or weakest version of yourself will come out, right? And the marketplace is going to discipline you if you're not bringing your best self to work every single day, right? So fast forward to today. Why am I relating what happened in COVID-19, with this crazy COVID recession that happened? Why am I relating that to right now? Well, because consumer confidence is lower, about 20 points lower than it was when COVID hit, right? So think about how much fear was in the world when COVID hit. And right now, as we're going through the administration change, a lot of fears around tariffs, a lot of fears around whether the economy is on a false high. Consumer confidence, for whatever reason, mix of these factors, is lower than it was the day of lockdowns, right? So we are in a lower consumer confidence point in time right now as I speak than the day that lockdowns happened, right? So we can choose to bury our head under the sand. We can choose to deny this. We can choose 1,000,001 reactions to this. But the fact of the matter is, when the marketplace becomes uncertain, entrepreneurs must become the most certain they've ever been. So for you as a law firm owner, what does this mean, right? Well, when the market kind of contracts, what happens to advertising spend? Many law firm owners are going to pull their advertising budgets. Many law firm owners are going to spend less on marketing, right? And in many industries, this is going to happen, right? Okay. What happens when people stop spending as much money on marketing? Do things become more or less competitive? Things become less competitive, right? So if it was costing you $100 to get a click on Google, during a recession, it's probably only going to cost you $70 to get a click on Google because there will be less competition, right? Less people advertising, less demand, keeps supply the same, and price goes down, right? This is economics 101. So, one of the biggest opportunities during a recessionary point in time, I'm not saying we're in a recession, I'm saying that there's marketplace uncertainty right now, is the discounted price of advertising. This is a once, when advertising shuts off, you're going to have a couple once in a lifetime opportunities to expand your brand like never before and never waste a crisis, right? One of my mentors told me this, never waste a crisis, right? When everyone else is fearful, you need to be greedy, right? That's a Warren Buffettism. When everyone else is being greedy, you need to be fearful, right? So when the market's good and everyone's highly confident, you need to be fearful. You need to be, you need to be double thinking your actions more. But when everyone is scared, you need to act with confidence, boldness, intensity, right? And that is how it works during time periods like this in your advertising. You want to be spending more in your advertising than you've ever done before. You want to be investing more in the scaling of your business than you've ever done before, right? This gives you unfair returns, right? And what's really exciting about this is the legal industry is quite recession proof. Now, because the fee-based areas of law, criminal, immigration, estate, family law, the fee-based areas of law where they're not on contingency fee, there is going to be some contraction, right? When people don't have money, they're going to be less likely to be able to find money to pay out of their pocket for products and services. However, the good thing about legal services is they are pressing needs, except for estate planning. That's more of a want. It's not necessarily a pressing need as much as the other areas of law, which are more like emergencies. Like emergency, I'm getting deported, right? Emergency, I've been arrested and I don't want to go to jail for 20 years of my life, right? Criminal defense. Emergency, I was in a car accident. Emergency, blah, 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 right? So these emergency areas of law, they tend to see a much lower dip in revenue compared to dips in GDP. What does that mean? Well, when people stop spending money on products and services, GDP goes down, right? Gross domestic product goes down. People buy less stuff. And there's certain, industries that get much more affected when GDP goes down. A great example of this is remodelers, right? So remodeling companies. Like, I don't have to desperately remodel my kitchen, right? Like, it's not like a pressing, desperate need, similar to I'm about to get deported and my whole family's about to get deported. Please help. Urgent, right? That's why an area of business that is also more recession proof is HVAC companies, heating, ventilation, air conditioning companies. If your air conditioning goes out and you live in southern Texas and it's summer, you're not going to push that off even if it's a recession, right? If your heat goes out and you live in Nebraska in the middle of winter, it doesn't matter if you don't have the money. You're going to find the money to get your heater fixed, right? So these more need-based services, they see less of a dip when GDP dips, right, during recessionary times. That's why the legal industry is such a consistent industry from a revenue perspective. Not a high growth industry, but very consistent in terms of revenue consistency across practice areas of law. So you can understand that while demand for legal services may not dramatically change, right, in a recessionary period, what is going to change is the mindset of the law firm owner, right? So if I take a room of, if we're in the worst depression or recession we've ever seen, right? And I take 100 owners of law firms and I put them in a room and I put an electric shock wave thing on their brain and I ask them a couple questions about their levels of fear around investing in their business right now, right? 99 of those 100 law firm owners are going to be making cost cutting, cost optimization decisions, right? They're going to be making fear-based decisions out of a real unfounded fear that doesn't necessarily match up with changes in demand of legal services. Therefore, it is an inappropriate fear. Now, if I'm a high-end remodeler or if I'm a, handbag sales company, right? I'm going to see a reduction in sales during a recession. So I have rational fear if I'm in that industry during a recession, right? But in the legal industry, we have to be very careful in making sure that the decisions that we make, whether the economy is good, bad, or indifferent, right? We have to make sure that the decisions that we make are in line with changes in demand of legal services, right? We also have to be very aware that our decision making is fully aware of the discounts that happen, right? When the market contracts, right? So people spend less on marketing, therefore marketing's cheaper, therefore leads are cheaper, therefore you can acquire more clients at a lower cost per client, right? Okay, great. More people get laid off and fired, right, during times of recessions, right? So what does that mean? That means you get better access to high quality talent, right? Because people are getting laid off during a recession. So you can hire A players at the highest possible rate. You can spend money and get the highest possible ROI from your marketing at a higher rate, right? So there is such abundant opportunities, but the biggest opportunity of all is the opportunity of disruption, right? And when the marketplace is scared, right? Oh, and by the way, during a recession, guess who's also scared? Your clients, right? Your client base is very scared. When people are scared, it is the best brand building opportunity in the world. Bring yourself back to when you were a kid. What did you do when you got scared, right? You reached for your mama or dada, right? My little girl, whenever she gets scared, she looks up at her mama and she goes like this with her arms, like she wants to hug my wife, Emily. It's the cutest thing ever, but isn't that kind of what we still do as human beings when we get scared, right? We want someone to console us. We want someone to hear us out. We want someone to validate that we're feeling the right way. We want someone to listen to us, right? That same thing happens when a prospective immigration client is going through a tough time. They're going to have higher levels of anxiety. And if you are the beacon of light for them, meaning you're putting out a ton of high value YouTube videos, your marketing is entertaining, valuable, and helpful, and makes them feel like you are that helping hand for them, right? And your firm is showing up constantly as that approachable brand that this scared person who feels on an island can talk to like a human and get some solutions from. If your firm is that firm, then you are going to mop up all of the cases in your local market, or all of the right fit cases in your local market, right? And that's because when fear is high, people look for answers. People look for a mentor. People look for someone to help them through that fear, right? And if you put a priority on strategic branding, right, and getting your firm in front of right fit people at the highest rate you possibly can, don't be surprised if your law firm doubles, triples, quadruples in a very short period of time. For me, when SMB team was going through the COVID time, I think SMB team prior to COVID did, in our second year, we did 1.5 million in revenue, 1.45 million in revenue. When COVID hit, at end of March, early April, our revenues went down 30%. Right? So we went from 1.5 to, pacing around I don't really know what that is. $1 million? Yeah. So pacing around $1 million. So we lost $500,000 in revenue, right? And mind you, we had like that much in expenses, right? So really, really scary time. But what happened in the 9 months on the back half of the year? S&B team went from 1.45 million to 4.5 million, right? In 1 year. So we basically tripled our business during the biggest recession I'd ever experienced in my life. And that's because I followed these exact principles, right? And this is the mindset that I hope more law firm entrepreneurs embrace. It is just so mission critical that you understand the opportunity that exists when you are that shining beacon of light. The only reason I had 3,777 attorneys sign up for my 4th webinar ever is because everyone was scared shitless. Everyone was like, what the hell? Courts are closed. Where's my money going to come from? How am I going to settle this case? How am I going to... And we were the only people that were providing a sounding board for the poor legal industry who was in shambles, wondering how the hell they were going to make it through this situation. And, because, I learned a lot about the legal industry through this experience, this is what allowed SMB team to roll out our coaching business, which has now turned into our fractional executive business, bookkeeping business, virtual assistant company, and all the services that we do in addition to our marketing agency services. And I don't know if all these things would have been innovated in our company if we didn't encounter massive adversity, right? And we didn't need to innovate both our marketing approach and our approach of speaking to our market at scale, right? So when the world is scared, this is where entrepreneurs need to step up, right? And they need to put their chest out, and they need to be the best version of themselves, and they need to come out of the woodwork, market themselves more than ever before, scale their business, make a bigger impact, spread your brand voice as much as you possibly can. And this is a topic that isn't necessarily talked about because it's counterintuitive. And I always say that I never want to learn what the average person does. We were just doing some ChatGPT research on a problem that we were looking to solve in our business. And a member of my team typed in on ChatGPT, tell me what the average company experiencing this problem would do to solve it, right? And I immediately stopped the person and said, we don't want to know what the average company does. We don't want to copy average, right? We want to see what the best top 1% of 1% of 1% of companies would do to solve this problem, right? I don't want to see how an amateur or an average company would solve this problem. I want to see how the best of the best of the best person would solve this problem, right? And when you adopt this mindset, you're always hunting for the top 1% of 1% of insights in everything that you're doing. And this is one of those 1% mindset things. This is one of those things that you're never going to learn in business school. You're not going to learn this in law school. You're not going to, be at a family get together during Christmas and hear your uncle who, knows nothing about business say, oh, here's what you do during a recession. You never know when the next check's going to come, right? If you get what you listen to. And what you listen to becomes your beliefs, and your beliefs become your legacy, right? So garbage in, garbage out. If you allow garbage to enter your ear holes, right, or your eye holes, if you allow garbage to enter your brain in any way, shape, or form, more likely you're going to have garbage beliefs. When you have garbage beliefs, you're going to have a garbage legacy, right? So the first place I always like to start is changing my information sources, right? This is why I almost never watch the news. I watch the news on my own terms. This is why I've unsubscribed. I only follow 2 people on my Instagram, my wife and my business. And I've turned off all notification on every social media platform is because I want to be the hunter of excellent information. I don't want to be victim to whatever the algorithm decides to hand deliver me that day, right? Which is often just clickbait, right? So if I allow clickbait to infect my mind long enough, I'm going to become a clickbait thinker. If I become a clickbait thinker, I'm going to have a clickbait legacy. I'll have clickbait beliefs. And that means I'm going to get clickbait results, right? So I have to listen to fewer and fewer people as I grow in my business, fewer and fewer mentors. I have to read fewer and fewer higher quality books, right? When I got started in business, it was how many books can I read on business? I know nothing. And that was good because everything was better than nothing, right? Now that I've read like hundreds of books in business, I don't need to read hundreds and hundreds of books anymore on business, right? Maybe on other topics, but not on scaling a business, right? I'm more so hunting for that top 1% of 1% of 1% of information. This applies to anything that you want to become a master at, right? Don't study what the average person does. Only study the greatest, right? Because if you do what everyone else does, you should expect the same results that everyone else does. And this was the thing, like one of the things that allowed me to kind of innovate our business model at SMB Team to become like the only law firm growth acceleration company, because we truly are the only company that's doing full service marketing, website, SEO, PPC, social media, landing pages, all of that, AI avatars for our social media lead gen. That's our agency. Bookkeeping. We have a bookkeeping business, fractional CFO business, fractional COO business, business coaching company, and our virtual assistant company. And all of these sectors of our business are multi-7-figure business units in SMB Team. Some are multi-8-figure business units. And the reason why this kind of business solutions framework of services that we built was built is because I didn't build our core product philosophy from copying what the average person does. The average person would say, oh, pick one specialty and do that for the rest of your life. I actually remember I had a mentor in the first year I started SMB Team tell me that I should only, and this person was making tens of millions of dollars, right? So you have to be very wary of who you listen to, right? This person making tens of millions of dollars a year. I'm puny little Bill making $400,000 a year in my company, which really means I'm taking home maybe $60,000 a year in profit or less, right? So here I am, I'm making $60,000 a year in take-home income, and someone making $10 million plus a year tells me this information. He says, you only should focus on law firm PPC forever. For the remainder of your business, you should only focus on law firm Google Ads management, right? And I took it in, nodded my head, thought about it, until I eventually said, that's not what I want to do, right? And I had to invent this new business model, and I didn't follow a book to do it because I always want to be the person that other people want to learn from rather than just learning from others who have done average things, right? Someone's got to get the arrows in their back. Somebody's got to be the pioneer. And I'm not saying this to talk myself up, that we got so much crap to improve on, it's not even funny. I won't bore you with it. But the point is, imagine if in your law firm you weren't just treating it as, oh, what's this PI firm do? What's that PI firm do? What's the average PI firm do? What's the average estate planning firm do? Why don't you just rethink an entire business model? Because the legal industry is starving for innovation. The only innovation that's really happening is with the AI companies, but there's almost no innovation happening within the actual legal industry itself. Almost none. There's been almost no new business models invented. You're seeing it some with like estate planning and wills and trust and estate, like doing digital online wills, stuff like that. That's not really big innovation. I mean, nobody's really rethought the practice of law. Nobody's really said, hey, we're going to change the entire way of handling legal services, right? And man, it is so prime for innovation right now in the legal industry. It's not even funny. I mean, and it's really frustrating me. It's making me think like I have to maybe become a lawyer to start pushing some of this innovation, because it's just everyone is just cutting and pasting what they did last year, what they did last decade. And it's just not going to cut it. The marketplace, someone's going to invent a new method, People already are embracing AI in ways that's going to change the business landscape forever. People are already embracing advertising in ways that's going to change the business landscape forever. Um, and the question is, are you going to be one of the innovators, or are you going to be one of the people that gets put out of business by one of the innovators, right? Or eventually has to sell to one of the innovators because you were unwilling to innovate. So innovation happens in a lot of ways: services innovation, pricing innovation, packaging innovation, positioning innovation. Um, Innovation with the book The Innovation Secrets of Steve Jobs talks a lot about this. There's capital I innovation and there's lowercase I innovation, right? Everyone thinks innovation is capital I innovation, right? Capital I innovation is I invented the plane, right? The Wright brothers, that whole thing, right? That is not what most invention and innovation is. Most invention and innovation is merging the use of prior inventions, right? So lowercase I innovation is, hey, let's take this little screen that we've kind of worked out on computers, let's make it a little bit smaller and let's put this on an iPhone, right? Boom, innovation number one. That's where the BlackBerry came from. Innovation number two, let's make this screen a touch screen. Okay, these are all micro innovations to where eventually we have the iPhone. Let's merge in iPod into the iPhone now that it's also a touchscreen, right? So micro innovation after micro innovation is how most innovation happens. About 85% of innovation is lowercase I innovation, right? So I'm not saying when you want to become innovative in your firm, like change everything. I'm saying change one tiny thing once a quarter, test it out, get real-time feedback, and create elements and little bits and pieces of a new business model in your firm so that you can eventually 3, 6, 9, 12, 24, 36 months from now be operating within a completely different realm than any of your competitors. And just know this, just speaking from experience, when you create a new way of going to business and a business approach, you are going to get a ton of criticism and you're also going to get a lot of dismissal, right? I can't tell you how many times when we expanded into business coaching, all of our coaching quote unquote competitors said, oh, that's S&B team. They're really just an agency. They have a tiny little coaching business, right? And some of these people don't know that, the size and of our current coaching and fractional executive business, right? They just think that we're still an agency that tried to get into coaching, right? And same thing happens in the agency space, right? Is a lot of these agencies, and this is just how denial works. Denial is not just a river in Africa or Egypt, right? So the agency competitors of ours, they say the exact opposite. They say, oh, that's S&B team. They're that coaching business that tried to do a little bit of agency stuff, right? And it's just all this non-acceptance around our competitors that is really just delusion. I've almost never talked to a competitor of ours or heard that a competitor of ours accurately labeled us, right? And accurately detected the threat of our company taking away their clients because of our advancement in the areas in which they also deliver services. So I hope to never be in denial. When my competitors do something better than me, I want to be the first person to call it out, and I would be the first person to say, hell yeah, thank you for innovating. Let me up my game and learn from your innovation, right? But I never want to be dismissive of my competitors innovating because I don't want to ever underestimate anyone, right? So now is the time to pounce. Marketplace uncertainty. I kind of hope it amps up a little bit so that it's even more of an opportunity. As of the time of this filming, some of the tariffs have been lifted for about 90 days, so there's a little less uncertainty. Therefore, advertising prices are going to go up, so it's not going to be as much arbitrage. But anyway, I think that there's just a lot to reflect on and take action on in the place of marketplace uncertainty. And right now could be your time to double down and reinvest in your firm like you've never done before. And your greatest life could be on the other side of the next 3 months, just with a little bit of discipline and commitment to double down and invest just a little bit more in the scaling of your firm at that next level. So I'll see you in the next episode. Keep it snazzy. And message us back. Let me know in a comment or email or message somewhere. What do you want me to go deeper into in future episodes? And I promise I'll read it and consider it for one of our upcoming episodes. Peace out, homie. If you found value in this podcast, here's one way I can help your firm right now. What if you could take all of our knowledge and experience helping law firms grow and use it to create a custom growth plan for your firm? I want to give you something special. I want to give you a free law firm 360-degree analysis. We usually charge $499 for this call, but you'll get it for free since you're committed to growth. Our team will walk you through the 4 steps of the law firm growth acceleration model and give you opportunities and fixes to grow your firm faster based on what we've learned across hundreds and hundreds of the fastest growing law firms in North America. Go to smbteam.com/360 to get your free analysis today.